And one of the difficult things for, I think, physicians going through burnout, and I experienced this as well, was it feels like a personal failing, right? So most physicians are just really high achievers. We're performance oriented, and we want to do the best job. And even through our training, right, you're assessed by your exam scores, you're assessed by the RVUs you generate, you're assessed by patient satisfaction. And so you just have this performance metric kind of mindset. And it takes a minute to realize that it really isn't a failing that you're struggling, right? It's really a result of the system. We work in a job that's really emotionally, spiritually, physically demanding. We work in a healthcare system that's doing the best job that it can, but it's got its struggles. And it can be hard to be a provider in a system that has growing pains. And I think the first part in my coaching program is just to recognize, like, hey, this is not your fault. We have this job that is really difficult for lots of reasons that we can't control. But the good news is that you actually have a lot of control how you respond within the system. And it's figuring out what it is that's going on in your current environment or job or life circumstances that really kind of triggered this episode of burnout. So the first thing is just to identify what's going on. And then the next step is to really just act. And so once you identify what's going on, why is that a problem for you and maybe not the person sitting next to you in the office? Like, what is it about your strengths, your values that you bring to the job that maybe causes you to struggle in this environment? And then we just do a lot of work to generate the skills and develop the skills that are needed to thrive in healthcare. And I think appropriate for your organization, there may be some people who are in a full-time clinical job, and maybe that's just not the right job for them. Maybe shifting to locums would be a better option for them, or shifting to part-time work or administrative work. And so part of the process is really just exploring what they want and what's right for them, and then taking action to make that happen.
That's really interesting to hear you say. Really, it is about tapping into your strengths and what makes you that really successful physician, and then realizing that there is an element that you can control. And I think that makes a lot of sense to be able to not go into that, stage of burnout. I believe in your coaching, obviously, work-life balance enigmas out there. How do you guide physicians and help them achieve that work-life, harmony?
Yeah. I love that you use the word harmony there too, because that the idea that we can achieve balance really is it's unattainable, right? And so really you just have to try to integrate your work life and your home life or your personal life. And there are going to be some days where work's going to have to take priority for whatever reason. And there are some days when family has to take priority. And I think the hardest thing for many physicians is to recognize that it's okay to not make work the number one priority all the time. And sometimes it's just something as simple as putting an event on the calendar that has nothing to do with work, right? We all walk around with these phones. Like, my clinical schedule takes up my entire calendar. And it wasn't until I just started scheduling, all right, I've got a date night tonight, or my niece has a soccer game on this Friday at 6:00. I need to get to that. And so it wasn't until I started putting those things on my calendar that I sort of gave myself the permission to say, hey, I don't need to schedule a patient at this time, or I don't need to say incomplete charts. This is just as important as the patient who's scheduled at another time.
That's great advice. Sometimes that's harder to do, once you take that first step and make that first, appointment on your calendar. I'm assuming then you'll kind of see that snowball effect.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So guilt is a huge part of burnout. And I think a huge reason that some physicians struggle is that we just have this innate calling and sometimes external pressure to always put the patient first. And if you don't, you feel like you're doing something wrong, and there's some guilt associated with that, right? But the first time you do it and you say no, like, hey, I'm not adding on a patient at 5:00. I'm actually going to go to dinner with my significant other. You realize that no one actually cares. And some people may actually be like, hey, good job for sticking up for yourself and for putting that on the calendar and doing what's right for you.